Another post-game reaction. I did one after the Rams and the Bills. This game was a lot crazier. This game wasn't a blowout. This was a nail biter. The Seahawks beat the Broncos 17-16. Russell Wilson on the wrong end of Seattle magic this time. Wow. Sometimes I feel that the NFL just scripts this because that decision at the very end from Nathaniel Hackett to me just didn't make any sense. A 64-yard field goal. I remember growing up and knowing that the field goal record was Dempsey, that guy from the Saints that I guess had my dad would always tell me had iron in his toe or something like that. And 63 was the field goal record forever. And nobody could make 63. In fact, it was a huge deal, right? When was it David Akers who made 63 at Lambeau Field to tie the record in 2012 for the 49ers against the Packers in the opener. But anyway, nobody could touch 63. It was just known as this distance of field goal that you didn't try, especially if you had a choice. Well, I get it. Fine. Maybe, something higher than 63 is the record now, but still 64 yards is a really long down field goal. And if you have an opportunity to do something else, you do it. You don't kick the 64-yarder. And it's 4th and 5. Denver has plenty of time. They had timeouts, right? I mean, they had Russell Wilson. That's the point. And Ed Werder tweeted this. He said, teams in the NFL and on 4th and 5 recently have a 49% success rate. So essentially it's a coin flip, right? 50% success rate. And that's all teams. That's not just Russell Wilson. McManus, the kicker for Denver, he was 1 of 7 and now 1 of 8 on kicks over 60 yards. And that's not a 64-yard kick. So that number is even lower than 1 of 7. And, I put it down at the bottom of the screen. I had 1 of 8. So 12. This is just a rough mathematical equation. There was, at best, a 10% chance that he makes that kick. And there was at least a 50% chance that Russell Wilson and Denver convert that first down to set up an easier kick. And we just saw Denver choose the 12.5% or the 10% option. Let's just say that. They chose the 10% option over the 50% option. I mean, some of these NFL coaches just don't, when the heat of the moment, they just don't understand probability and what a good decision is. So that was terrible to me. But that was fun too, because it was the 49ers next two opponents on display. The 49ers play the Seahawks on Sunday. It's a short week for Seattle, so the 49ers should benefit from that. And then they go next Sunday night after that, they go to Denver, Mile High City, altitude to play the Broncos and Russell Wilson. So all really interesting stuff. Why don't we talk about this? The Marquise Goodwin revenge game could happen next week. He's on the Seahawks. I was reminded of that when I watched this game. Oh, there's Marquise Goodwin making a couple catches. The Dante Pettis revenge game was last week. I joked about it this offseason when the Bears signed Pettis. Everybody was like, oh, no, it's not going to happen. I was just joking. I didn't think it was going to happen either. But then we saw the Dante Pettis revenge quarter turn into the Dante Pettis revenge game. The NFL must really hate the 49ers because they're setting this up for the Dante Pettis revenge game, followed by the Marquise Goodwin revenge game. The 2017 and 2018 49ers leading receivers revenge games, right? Because I think Pettis led the team in 2018 in receiving. He definitely had a good second half of the season, scored a long touchdown on the field right behind me up in Seattle. Are they playing the highlights of that game right now? I can't tell. I got the TV blurred out behind me. I kept ESPN on, so they might be. No, they're playing something else right now. It's probably on SportsCenter. Anyway, 49ers can hope that it's not the Marquise Goodwin revenge game to follow the Dante Pettis revenge game. That's the best they can do. There will be no Jamal Adams for 49ers Seahawks. Torn quad muscle today. Sound like a very similar injury to what Mike McGlinchey suffered at the end of the season last year. So no Jamal Adams, but the 49ers are still going to work against the Seattle team that is now first in the NFC West. Everybody else lost. Arizona lost. The Rams lost. Both blowouts. The 49ers lost by 2 possessions. They didn't play well, and Chicago just shot themselves in the foot, all the penalties. And the Seahawks, well, I mean, this was a quintessential Seattle win. Maybe I should put that down here. This was a totally quintessential Seattle win. Seattle bullshit, as they say. That happened today, and Russell Wilson was on the opposite end of it, and I'll illustrate here in a second. So as soon as I put this text title up, this was a quintessential, all right, spelled it right, no spell check, Seahawks win. Boom. Let me demonstrate. Let's open up the stats for this game. Let's share our screen, share the window right here. Here we go. All right, so take a look at this. Statistics from today's game. If I need to make that bigger, this is as big as it's probably going to get. 17-16, Seattle wins. Denver outgained the Seahawks 433 to 253, as you can see in this line right here. Denver had 6.8 yards per play. The Seahawks had 5.2 yards per play. And you had this quarterbacking performance from Denver and Russell Wilson. I mean, this is absurd. 20 EPA, plus 20 EPA, 0.43 EPA per play. I mean, these bars are percentiles. So if I put this up here, it will tell me that's 90th percentile quarterbacking efficiency from Russell Wilson today, 95th percentile total EPA for the game. So they get a top-tier quarterback performance. They outgain their opposition, Denver does, by nearly 200 yards. And somehow they lose the football game. This, by the way, has happened to the 49ers against the Seahawks very frequently. And the Seahawks countered. You got to give Geno Smith credit. He was 17 out of his first 18. His performance was 76th percentile across the board, total EPA and EPA per play. So Geno played well, and he was accurate. The CPOE here on short passes, he was accurate, 91st percentile. But for Denver to somehow squander this performance from Russell Wilson in his homecoming and this kind of statistical advantage, that is a quintessential Seattle win. That's the Seattle BS. I'm not going to say it again, but it's the Seattle BS that Russell Wilson always seemed to conjure up his magic at the end of games, right? 2019 was a great example, but then the 49ers stonewalled him with Dre Greenlaw at the line of scrimmage. But it just always seemed to happen, especially on that field against the 49ers. It turns out that magic didn't seem to travel with Russell Wilson across the Rockies to Denver, because he comes back and now he's a victim of it. It's crazy. Today, like DJ Jones made a 4th down stop earlier in the game. DJ Jones always made big plays against the Seahawks when he was a member of the 49ers, right? DJ Jones was, I still remember him trucking Joey Hunt in the 2019 game, running Russell Wilson down to the sideline. He makes a big 4th down sneak stop in this game. So it was like DJ Jones perpetuating the tradition of making big plays against the Seahawks. But this time Russell Wilson was on his team. So it's just weird watching this game. But anyway, we had the 49ers next two opponents on display. And, why don't we just talk about the matchups? Jamal Adams not going to be there for the Seahawks. 49ers are going to have to deal with a hot quarterback in Geno Smith. Yeah, he wasn't really pushing the ball downfield. That 5 yards average depth of target that I showed you meant that he was efficient, and the 49ers are going to have to combat the short game. In fact, when you have a pass rush like the 49ers do, you're probably going to see a lot of short game if the other team is going to be passing. So you have to make sure the P's and Q's are taken care of there. And then you just can't fall asleep on the back end like they did against the Bears. I think most importantly, if the 49ers avoid penalties, you saw that the Seahawks only managed 253 total yards in this game against the Denver Broncos. And that's an important stat because the Broncos are considered a top-tier team talent-wise. And I think that the numbers illustrated that. Much like the numbers in the 49ers game illustrated that they were better than the Bears, but they didn't execute. They weren't disciplined, and they ended up losing the game. Well, look what happened to Denver today. They fumble on 2 straight possessions at the 1-yard line. So just like the 49ers, they outgain their opposition. I think they're better than the opposition, but they lose in one of these Seattle-style games that we talked about, even with Russell Wilson on their team, because they turn the ball over at the goal line. They don't turn yards into points. So, back to basics. The 49ers need to turn yards into points. That's what's on the table for them as they host Seattle this week. Now, the season's not on the line for the 49ers. It's a very important game. Nobody wants to start 0-2. But let's hold the knee-jerk reactions. I saw some of those online. The 49ers were 3-5 last year, and they dug their way out of it into playoff contention. There's a lot of football left to be played. It would be very nice, though, from the 49ers' perspective, to win this game against Seattle. Then you move into an early tie with Seattle for the NFC West lead. But you have to remember that Denver is coming after them. And Denver, I think, is going to be a good football team. They're going to be hard to beat at Invesco Field at Mile High. Do they still call it that? They get a new corporate sponsor. But after the Broncos, you have the Rams at home. So it's going to be tough to win all of these games. I think you got to win the home opener if you're the 49ers just to give some good vibes early in the season. I don't think your season's on the line, but your probability goes down if it doesn't work out. So, I mean, it's absolutely a situation here where the 49ers are going to try to circle the wagons, deliver cleaner football, move forward. But boy, I just can't believe what happened today. Denver chose the 12.5% option over the 50% option. As far as, other stuff today, I could, talk a little 49ers. Maybe look at the comment section. Is everybody in a better mood yet? It's been over 24 hours. You guys have had a chance to process the loss a little bit. This is the article that I wrote today. Pop it open on the screen. Boom. There you go. Trey Lance's rainy inaccuracy. Talanoa Hufanga's big splash. 49ers minutia minute. So go ahead and subscribe to The Athletic. Check out this piece. We talked about, this is my look back at 49ers Bears. You can go check out the other video. We also have, I'm going to open up a little YouTube channel, like picture in picture here. Looks like commercials are on behind me. Is that Pizza Hut? Can't tell. No, it's Burger King. Ew, I'm not a big Burger King fan. Check out the chat section, and I'm going to open up the YouTube page here because we put up some good content for you today that you should check out if you haven't checked out yet. And it is all right here. Oh, and we're going to get picture in picture right here. Seahawks-Broncos live reaction, the 49ers next two opponents, but you could also check out the Kyle Shanahan conference call from today. And
injuries from the game, Elijah Mitchell, MCL sprain, not going to need surgery, but it's going to be some time. He'll end up going on IR here. Javon Kinlaw.
Okay, so there's Kyle Shanahan. I'm not going to belabor you with more of that. And on top of that, I had a question asked of Kyle Juszczyk today. So hopefully I could find it here and we could just play that one in the background for you because I thought that here it is. Why don't we open this up with QuickTime? Hopefully you guys can hear this. They had players available on these conference calls today. And I asked Kyle Juszczyk about a certain three-play sequence a little bit earlier in the game that I'm going to play for you right now. And he agreed with, my sentiment. And I think that this is something that the 49ers can build off of leaving Chicago. So are we there? No, we're not. I have to.
Trey had.
Here it is.
Having a presence.
Well, there was a
leadership about him. So it's good to see.
Kyle, there was a impressive sequence on the touchdown drive where you guys went triple option. Then Trey had what I thought was his best pass to Ray out on the outside, and then you went inside zone to Elijah. Then obviously you scored the touchdown. That sequence, looking back on it, is it fair to say that was kind of a good encapsulation of what you guys, hope to show with this offense, with Trey and the personnel that you have this year?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's kind of exactly what we've been saying this whole offseason. I think when anyone gets asked, how will this defense or how will this offense change with Trey, we've really said that it's going to be very similar. We're going to run the football, but he adds that extra element with his legs and being able to run the ball, and he does a good job of pushing the ball down the field. And I think the drive that you're pointing out there encapsulates all of that. That's exactly what he did, and it's exactly what our offense looked like. And I think if we can continue to replicate that and get more opportunities, we can be really successful with an offense like that.
So that was Kyle Juszczyk. I asked him specifically about the three-play sequence. I think Elijah Mitchell got hurt at the end of it on that inside zone run. But remember, the 49ers ran triple option, and then Lance threw his best pass of the day to Ray McLeod. That was outside numbers, kind of, layering it over coverage, beautiful throw, just, dropped it in there. And then Mitchell ripped off a big run. That was what this 49ers offense under Lance is supposed to be all about. Creative running, big arm from Trey Lance, chunk plays through both the air and on the ground. And then they ended up scoring with Deebo Samuel, running it into the end zone, running over Eddie Jackson. So, you could talk about how ugly the 49ers performance looked in this game against Chicago from the penalty perspective. They stalled out in the second half, whatever you want to say. But they definitely showed offensive crispness. They definitely showcased the blueprint of the formula, the ability to execute the formula that only a talented team can do, right? The 2017 49ers didn't have drives like the 2022 49ers put together against Chicago. The 2018 team, I don't really think was able to do that, especially after Garoppolo got hurt. So the point is that the 49ers have the ammo, right? They have the arsenal to be able to execute, the vision that we've talked about They just have to put it together. They just can't commit 12 penalties for 100 yards. And that opportunity is going to start next week. Week 1 has been weird around the entire NFL for years now. And I think it's because teams don't treat the preseason as seriously as they have in the past. But this year, week 1, weirdness at the 49ers. I later asked Kyle Shanahan, maybe I could find my question to Shanahan. It was a little bit later in the Shanahan video here. Maybe we could find this on YouTube. Let me fast forward to the end of it, because I asked Shanahan, if he thought that the penalties might have been a fluke, because there was a situation against Tampa Bay where the 49ers had committed 11 penalties. And Shanahan actually had a really interesting answer as far as the personal fouls and the quarterback tackling. So hopefully I skip ahead to the right part of it here, and let's find it.
Jameson acted like he was going to slide in.
Yep, this is it. So let me just go to my question.
Fouls were stuff. I think it was more coincidental.
Tampa, I looked. I think it was.
He's ready to go Wednesday.
All right, here we go.
But not sure yet. I know he'll be working to get back this week.
Kyle, I think it was 2019. You guys had the opener against Tampa. I looked it up. You had 11 penalties in that one. Obviously, you won that game. But is there any correlation, do you think, between a lot of penalties and a season opener kind of knocking off rust, or do you think that was purely coincidental?
I don't know. It could be. I mean, I think it was more coincidental. I think, I think the one, especially, the personal fouls were stuff that, that happens when you have a running quarterback. And that's stuff we got to be a lot better at. And we got one similar to Tampa Bay that year when Jameson acted like he was going to slide, and then Quan ended up getting ejected. So that's kind of the challenge of that stuff. It's tough to win when we commit those penalties, and that starts with me. And we got to make sure to clean those up, because I felt we had every opportunity to win that game, and our defense had every opportunity to completely dominate that game, and that's what allowed them to get 3 touchdowns in a row.
So, I thought that was just an extremely interestingly paced answer from Shanahan. I brought up, I thought, a fair point, and he considered it, and it kind of made him think about it, right? And this is what I love about covering Kyle Shanahan, is that I think if you ask a good question, he's going to give it thought, and he's going to give you as much of an honest answer as he can without obviously giving away a competitive advantage. So I asked him, do you think that the penalties might have had something to do with rust, right? Because this is week 1. And I brought up 2019. The 49ers' 5th most penalized game in the Shanahan era was the 2019 season opener at Tampa Bay with 11. This was their 4th most penalized game in the Shanahan era with 12. And Shanahan said, I think most of it's a coincidence. But then he goes off on a minute-long answer talking about, how there were factors in this game that led to those penalties. And obviously, it's the personal fouls that bugged the 49ers the most. There was 45 personal foul yards in this game. And in both the Tampa Bay game, where Jameis Quan Alexander got ejected, right? Remember in that game? And Jameis Winston was running around a little bit. And in this game against Justin Fields, the 49ers weren't quite on their P's and Q's, because it was hard. It's really hard. As far as, the flaggable offenses against the quarterback. And the main issue is, regardless of how these penalties happened, regardless of why the refs did throw those flags, the 49ers went from a position where they were completely dominating the game to where the Bears had daylight and they took over the game. And that's how small the margin is. So Shanahan, he probably thinks most of these penalties are coincidental, but I also think that there was something in his answer that indicated that he thinks the 49ers can find a little bit more touch, as far as, not all penalties are built the same. There are false starts. There's offensive pass interference. There was some procedural stuff in this game, right? The 49ers just need to cut them out to the level that it doesn't open enough of a sliver for an overmatched opponent to get into the game. But anyway, I just appreciate the refreshing honesty from Shanahan. I like that he thinks about the question. I like that he delivers his version of an answer, and you can parse through that however you want. But I think that a lot of these press conferences, and maybe even especially some of these that we do over the phone, because I do like that conversational aspect. Sometimes when somebody's at the podium, gets a little bit more stilted. The locker room for that reason is so much better with players, because you can just get into more of a conversational flow. So I thought that was good today. Anyway, I'm going to take a look into the comment section. Don't make me regret it, and maybe I'll answer a couple of questions, and maybe I could turn off this banner. This is Shanahan. Why don't we put it on? Juwan Jennings is a stud. That's from this morning. Check me out on Twitter. That's a good one right there. Keep that one up. Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith played a good game today. Pete was pounding his chest in the press conference. Pete Carroll, yeah, Geno's 17 of his first 18. Kind of reminds me of Alex Smith against the Arizona Cardinals the week before he suffered the concussion, right? Didn't Alex start 19 of 20 against Arizona? And then I was actually at the game. I was like sitting in the upper deck. I was at the game in 2012 with the ex-girlfriend. In 2012, we're sitting in the upper deck, 49ers Rams, when Smith gets concussed. And does everybody remember how that game ended? Kaepernick comes in. Kaepernick scores a rushing touchdown at the pylon, but who remembers how that game ended? First person who says how that game ended, 49ers Rams, gets their name up on the screen. Colin Kaepernick's first extended action as a 49er in 2012 against the Rams. What was the result of that game? Come on, I know one of you is going to know. I can't say any more because I'm going to give away the answer. I think Danny Amendola was on the Rams. He made a ton of big plays. There were missed field goals. How did 49ers Rams 2012 at Candlestick end? At this point, you guys are cheating. At this point, you guys are looking it up because somebody knows this answer. This is unbelievable. There's 173 people watching and nobody knows. This is crazy. All right, I'm going to give you guys 10 more seconds. How did 49ers Rams 2012 end? The game in which Alex Smith suffered a concussion and Colin Kaepernick took over. This was the week before they played the Bears. Yes, finally. It was a tie. It ended in a tie. No, the 49ers didn't lose. It was a tie. It was a tie game at Candlestick, and it was the weirdest feeling of all time leaving that stadium. Because, I saw 49ers fans. I saw Rams fans. Nobody knew how to feel. Because the way the game went, the 49ers that was a 2012 team. They're really good. 10 years now. And they were heavily favored over the Rams. So just the fact that the Rams were hanging in the game kind of made the 49ers not feel too good about it. But then there was like 2 or 3 instances at the end of regulation and at overtime. And right here, Kevin Wood. Good job, Kevin. So there's 2, and thank you. There's 2 or 3 instances at the end of regulation or overtime that saw the Rams like in a position to certainly win the game. Like it was no brainer. Rams are going to win. And all the 49ers fans had resigned themselves to, okay, well, we dropped this one, upset win, whatever. But then something happened, like a missed field goal or penalty or something, just totally screwed the Rams up. And then the 49ers went back the other way and everybody's like, yeah, the 49ers are going to win now. And then the 49ers blew a field goal. And then it just ended as a tie. And everybody left the stadium like semi-thankful, like 49ers fans left semi-thankful the 49ers didn't lose because they should have lost several times, but also mad that they didn't capitalize on their obvious chances to win. So it was like the most frustrating thing that I have ever seen, like as a sports fan, just seeing nobody happy. Like that's what soccer is for, right? To leave with nobody happy. Football's not supposed to work that way. You're not supposed to have the tie. You're supposed to leave with somebody winning and somebody losing. But 49ers Rams 2012 did not get that job done. Ooh, is Jason from Visalia? That's crazy. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with the chat section. Just having people ask questions. Yeah, is Jay? That's awesome. If Jason's from Visalia, he watches the show a lot. But yeah, the Niners Rams 2012. That was a weird tie game. Good memories. R.I.P. to Candlestick. No longer there. All right, you guys have any questions? We don't even have like a 49ers really related thumbnail or title, but we already have 200 people in here, so maybe we've got some Seahawks fans. So anyway, just to like recap the people who joined a little bit earlier, you could see I've got ESPN on behind me, but Denver literally chose like the 10 to 12.5% option. Kicking a 64-yard field goal is extremely difficult. They chose that over a 50% option, just like Russell Wilson on 4th and 5. That's documented. Like NFL teams are 49% on 4th and 5 recently. I think a team with Russell Wilson at QB, especially Russell Wilson playing this type of game right here. I mean, this is a good football game from Russell Wilson. Not trusting that on 4th and 5. And imagine that kind of stat line and then saying, nah, I'm good. I'd rather kick a 64-yard field goal. You kidding me? Well, Nathaniel Hackett out of his mind today. So the 49ers' next two opponents are on display, and it appears that the Broncos don't have sound probability management on the sidelines. Maybe they'll improve by the time the 49ers play them in a couple weeks. But Denver literally chose the bad option over the much better option. But Marquise Goodwin got a win, and Marquise Goodwin gets to play the 49ers next week. So we've already seen the Dante Pettis revenge game. Now Marquise Goodwin has his chance at his. So don't throw the food at me. I'm just a messenger here. No Jamal Adams for the Seahawks. And, what a quintessential Seattle win. I know that we're going back through this, but we have a lot of new viewers. I mean, this is crazy. 433 to 253, the yardage advantage for Denver. Yards per play, a big advantage as well. You already saw what Russell Wilson did, yet the magic of winning didn't follow him. That Seattle-style win stayed in Seattle. Russell Wilson didn't bring it. So it had more to do with the Seahawks than it did with Russell Wilson. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Do I honestly think that the offensive line will hold up during the season? Well, I thought they took a big step forward against Chicago. Spencer Burford played a good game. If your rookie plays a good game in the opener on the road against not a bad defensive front, no pressures allowed for Burford, good in pass protection, that was one of the big worries for the 49ers. I think we could legitimately expect ups and downs from Burford, but the floor is much higher than people could have feared. And I didn't think that Banks was abysmal. I didn't think he was great. He gave up only one pressure in a true pass set. I thought he did some good stuff run blocking. He definitely graded out okay on PFF. The ESPN metrics didn't like Banks as much, but he was playable. He was playable, and that's a good start. Brendel actually gave up two pressures in this game, but it's tough. Center pressures, sometimes they're trying to pass guys off to the guards next to them. I try to view the interior line as a unit. In totality, it gave up four pressures. Banks and Brendel, two each. Burford, nothing. They've got to get better next week. That's the key for the 49ers moving forward. But the irony was that the tackles gave up more than the guards in this game. And I don't have a minute of doubt that Trent Williams won't play at a high level for the 49ers. He might have been tipping off some of the pass plays, and I think he'll get that fixed. So I do think the offensive line is on a good track, and we'll see what's going to happen moving forward. You got to stay healthy, too. Otherwise, you got to test some of your depth. Russell Wilson still managed to disappoint the 49ers. That's funny. That's a good one. That's a good one. Any pointers for someone who's looking to attend university for journalism? I just make all the connections that you can, man. I think it's more of anybody can, sit and talk in front of a camera these days. So the barrier to entry is much lower, but because of the ease of connecting with an audience, you have to be really careful to maintain your credibility, maintain respect. Don't take cheap shots. Just back stuff up that you say factually. So you can get started a lot easier than when I'm 34 now. So when I got started about 12 years ago, coming out of college, and I started at Stanford doing the student radio station. So maybe a little bit before then. Now, I have a great story for you. The first coach that I covered at Stanford was Jim Harbaugh. This is the first coach that I covered as a student reporter. And I'm 19 years old. I'm a sophomore. The first road game that I covered was Stanford beating USC in the Coliseum despite being 41-point underdogs. And Jim Harbaugh turned that program around. And, I'd be critical sometimes because, that's your job. You're calling these games on the radio. And, years later, I've run into Jim a few times, but years later, I ran into him in the south of France. I'm traveling France with one of my buddies, and I run into Jim Harbaugh and his wife. And, we see each other, we start talking. And, I hadn't seen him in years, like a long, long time. And this is 2016. So I last covered him in 2009, 2010. He still remembered specific criticisms that I delivered on the radio, on the student radio station. So that's how on top of everything that was going on around his program, this guy was when he turned around Stanford. But the point is that the stuff you put out there, people listen. People will remember what you put out there when you're covering a team. You know, as you know, you might think that you're starting small time or whatever, but people, I mean, it's important. And whatever you put out there, whatever reputation you earn and put out there, that's going to stick with you. And I think it's really important to maintain that sense of perspective as you do, you know, build your portfolio. So that would be my advice to like anybody entering journalism, is to just take every step seriously and pretend that somebody is watching very closely at every step, because there's a good chance that they are, even if you only have 12 followers or whatever, right? They're like that. And then, you know, credibility. I think people recognize good content, and people will find good content on the internet. And there's a whole lot of people with content on the internet. So there is a lot of competition right now. But if you stay the course, if you don't try to go for like, you know, some of the cheap clicks and stuff like that, if you just try to go for the meatier stuff, the, you know, kind of just like the red meat of sports, if you just go for the facts, and, you know, you opine with facts behind those opinions, then you'll see that slow and steady race end up in your favor. That's just, that I think that diligence wins out. And I just ran a race the other day, swam a race, I guess I should say. It wasn't all that long. It was 800 yards. That was my leg of the triathlon, the relay triathlon that we were doing. And, you know, it only took 10 or 11 minutes. But while you're swimming it, you're in like such pain and you feel like it's 30 or 40 minutes. But then you look up and you're like, oh, look, I went 800 yards and it's only been about 10 minutes. And I think that's a lot like this industry, and a lot like any industry, any work. You're putting your head down, trying to put one hand in front of the other on the stroke, or one foot in front of the other, or one article in front of the other. And if you diligently work, if you don't look too far ahead and you're just making every single rep count, you'll turn around and look and you're like, oh, wow, that came quite a way. So I hope that advice helps. By the way, can you answer my question from earlier? Maybe you already did. Are you from Visalia? I'm trying to scroll up to see if you said that you're from Visalia. No, if you're not from Visalia, then it's all good. But good question. Thanks. I think that's a good note to end it on. I think it's time to relax. Day off tomorrow. We won't take the day off here. We'll still talk 49ers. So we'll be good. Oh, he's from San Mateo. Cool. Awesome. We know Mike is from Visalia because I know Mike. Mike and I went to the same high school, Mount Whitney High School, Visalia, California. Okay, cool. All right. We answered the big question. We can call it a night. Fun stuff watching Monday Night Football. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoy these more lighthearted shows, just talking life, talking football. It's kind of my goal. This is social media. You know, YouTube is just like Twitter to me. I sit there and I tweet thoughts. Why can't I just sit there and talk thoughts into the video camera? Same kind of thing, right? So everybody sub to the channel. It's like Eric Gomes said. Thank you all, and everybody have a good night. Take care.